It started small, the way these things usually do. A comment here, a snide look there. I worked as a graphic designer at Finch & Sparrow Marketing. It wasn't glamorous, but I loved the creative part, bringing ideas to life on a screen. I poured my heart into it. Maybe too much heart. I'd always been a bit quiet, maybe a bit plain, I guess. I liked comfortable clothes, packed my own lunch, didn't really go for the after-work drink scene. And maybe that made me an easy target, especially for Brenda. Brenda was a senior designer, all sharp angles and sharper words. She had this way of looking at my work, tilting her head just so and saying something like, "Oh, Sarah, that's interesting," with a tone that made interesting sound like something my cat dragged in. At first, I thought maybe I just needed to improve, work harder. So I did. I stayed late, I read design blogs, I practiced, but it didn't matter. If I used a bold font, it was too aggressive. If I used something delicate, it was weak and indecisive. She'd forget to invite me to brainstorming lunches, accidentally delete a file I needed, or loudly praise someone else for an idea I knew I'd mentioned quietly in a meeting the day before. It wasn't just Brenda. Others started joining in, maybe because it was easier than being her next target. There were whispers when I walked past, little smirks exchanged over cubicle walls. My manager, Mr. Henderson, a man whose spine seemed to be made of jelly, would just offer a weak smile and say things like, "Team dynamics can be tricky, Sarah. Try to rise above it." Rise above what? Daily soul-crushing negativity? The worst part was going home. See, there's something I haven't mentioned. My husband, Alex. We met years ago, before everything. Before his tech company exploded and the word billionaire started getting attached to his name. To me, he was just Alex. My Alex. Kind, funny, a little nerdy. The man who made terrible puns and still gave me butterflies. He knew I worked at Finch & Sparrow. He supported my desire to have my own thing, my own career, separate from his world. He knew I didn't want anyone at work to know about him. I wanted to be judged on my own merits, not as the billionaire's wife. I wanted to feel normal. So, we kept it quiet. Very quiet. He'd drop me off a few blocks away. I never talked about lavish holidays or fancy dinners. My colleagues probably thought I lived in a tiny apartment and worried about bills, just like them. Alex saw the change in me, though. He'd see me come home with my shoulders slumped, eyes red-rimmed. I tried to brush it off. "Tough day," I'd murmur. Creative differences. "Just tired." He'd hold me, rub my back, and say, "Are you sure? You know you don't have to work there, Sarah. You don't have to put up with anything that makes you unhappy." "I know, Alex," I'd say, trying to sound convincing. "But I want to do this. I just need to get better, tougher." I didn't want to burden him, didn't want him to think I couldn't handle it, and maybe, deep down, I was embarrassed that this was happening to me. Then came the pitch. The big one. A huge potential client. We'd all been working on it for weeks. My part was the visual presentation, the mock-ups, the slide design. I'd poured everything into it, stayed up until 3 a.m. most nights, fueled by coffee and sheer determination. I was actually proud of it. Really proud. The morning of the presentation, I walked in feeling a flicker of hope. Maybe this would be it. Maybe they'd see my talent. I set up the projector in the conference room. Brenda swept in, looking immaculate as always. "Ready for the big show, Sarah?" she asked, a tight little smile on her face that didn't reach her eyes. "I think so," I said, my voice betraying a little nervousness. "Just make sure you don't click the wrong thing," she added, tapping a perfectly manicured nail on my laptop. "Wouldn't want any technical difficulties." The clients arrived. Mr. Henderson started his awkward introduction. Then it was my turn to present the visuals. I took a deep breath and clicked to the first slide. It wasn't my slide. It was a cartoon. A badly drawn, mean-spirited caricature of me, looking frumpy and clueless, with buck teeth and crossed eyes. Underneath it, in childish lettering, it said, "Sarah's great ideas." A gasp went through the room, then a snicker. I saw Brenda press her lips together, trying to hide a smile. My face went boiling hot. My hands started shaking. I fumbled with the mouse, trying to click past it, but my fingers felt thick and clumsy. Excuse me?" I stammered, my voice cracking. That's not supposed to be there." Mr. Henderson looked horrified but mostly helpless. Brenda leaned forward slightly, feigning concern. "Oh dear, Sarah. Did you accidentally leave a draft file in the presentation?" The clients looked confused, then uncomfortable. The air crackled with humiliation. My humiliation. I felt hundreds of eyes on me, pitying, mocking. I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. I managed to skip past the horrible cartoon, but the damage was done. I stumbled through the rest of the presentation, my voice trembling, my mind blank. I couldn't look anyone in the eye. Every slide felt tainted. When it was finally over, the clients left quickly with strained smiles. Mr. Henderson wrung his hands. Brenda looked smug. No one said anything to me. I gathered my things, my cheeks still burning, tears blurring my vision. I walked out of that conference room, through the suddenly silent office, and didn't stop until I was outside, gasping for air like I'd been underwater. I didn't even realize I was crying until I tasted salt. I hailed a cab, something I rarely did, and just choked out my home address. When I got home, Alex was there working at the dining table. He looked up, saw my face, and was out of his chair in an instant. "Sarah? What happened? What's wrong?" And it all came pouring out. Everything. Not just the presentation, but the weeks and months of snide remarks, the exclusion, Brenda's sabotage, Mr. Henderson's weakness, the whispers, the feeling of being small and worthless. I sobbed into his chest, telling him how stupid I felt, how weak, how utterly humiliated. I told him I'd kept it secret because I didn't want to be that wife, but that I couldn't take it anymore. Alex just held me. He didn't interrupt. He just held me tight, stroking my hair, letting me cry it all out. When I finally quieted down, exhausted and raw, he gently tilted my chin up. His eyes, usually so warm and kind, were hard. There was a cold fury in them I'd never seen before. "Nobody," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Nobody does that to you." He picked up his phone. He made one call. It was short, clipped. I couldn't hear everything, but I heard phrases like Finch and Sparrow, unacceptable conduct, toxic environment, and immediate action. What are you doing?" I asked, wiping my eyes. "Fixing it," he said simply. He pulled me close. Again. "You are brilliant and kind, and you deserve to be treated with respect. Always. I should have stepped in sooner. I'm sorry I let you go through this for so long because I was respecting a wish that was hurting you." The next morning, my phone started buzzing. Texts from colleagues I barely spoke to. Confused, panicked messages. "What's going on? Did you hear? Security won't let us in the building." Then a news alert popped up on my phone. Something about a sudden, unexpected closure of Finch and Sparrow marketing due to an abrupt withdrawal of major funding and potential acquisition talks initiated by Alex's primary holding company. Apparently, Alex's company hadn't just been a client Finch and Sparrow were hoping to land. A subsidiary was already one of their biggest unnamed accounts, funneled through intermediaries. Leverage. Alex walked over, coffee cup in hand, and showed me an internal email he'd received confirmation of, effective immediately, all Finch and Sparrow operations were suspended. All employment contracts terminated pending investigation and restructuring under new potential ownership. The entire office. Brenda, Mr. Henderson, the gossipers, the quiet, ones who just watched. Everyone. Gone. I stared at the phone, then at Alex. My stomach churned with a weird mix of emotions. Relief, yes, overwhelming relief that I never had to walk back into that place, never had to see Brenda's face again. But also shock, guilt even. People had lost their jobs. Families would be affected. Alex, the whole office? I whispered. He looked at me seriously. Sarah, what happened to you wasn't just one bad apple. It was a failure of leadership, a failure of culture. Henderson allowed it. Others participated or stood by. A place that rotten needs to be gutted, not pruned. They humiliated you. They fostered an environment where that was acceptable. That has consequences. He put his arms around me. This isn't about revenge, not really. It's about making sure that kind of poison doesn't spread. And more importantly, he squeezed me gently. It's about protecting you. Always. It felt surreal. Extreme. Part of me was horrified by the sheer power he wielded, the ease with which he'd erased an entire workplace. But another, deeper part of me felt safe, seen, fiercely protected. The humiliation still stung, a phantom ache in my chest, but it was overlaid with the stunning reality of Alex's action. I never went back to Finch and Sparrow, obviously. I took some time off. We talked a lot, Alex and I, about boundaries, about communication, about how we navigate his world and my desire for independence. Eventually, I started doing freelance design. Work, on my own terms. Sometimes I still feel a pang of guilt about the people who lost their jobs. But then I remember the look on Brenda's face during that presentation, the feeling of shrinking under those mocking eyes, and Mr. Henderson's utter uselessness. And I remember Alex's quiet fury, the feeling of finally being shielded after feeling so exposed. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. It was messy and complicated and maybe even ethically gray. But it was real. It was the story of how I was pushed to my breaking point and how the man I loved, the quiet billionaire nobody at my office knew existed, reacted not with magic words, but with decisive, earth-shattering action. He didn't just fire the people who hurt me, he fired the whole damn office. And honestly, a part of me, the part that still remembers sobbing in that taxi, will always be grateful he did.